Hey everybody, this is Vindiagram with my first tutorial. Today I'm going to be talking about default sets and specifically creating a drum rack for a default set. Default sets typically are in Ableton are 2 MIDI tracks, 2 bus tracks, and 2 audio tracks. I was working that way for a long time. I still kind of like that workflow a little bit, like just kind of having that almost. I mean, they set up their default set pretty cool, but I mean, I was doing a lot of searching through my samples and like finding kicks and processing them and then recording them out to have one kick. But I'm really feeling this whole I used to not like working with MIDIs as much, and now I actually really enjoy working in MIDI, which is kind of weird that I didn't like it before because I make electronic music and MIDI's the computer's music source. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes I want to go back and create a new kick if something's not working, or create some sound or something like that. Maybe if I'm using some Foley samples or something like that. That's where that comes in. And then I just have this IO set up to go ahead and record it from this drum create. So basically how this drum rack works, you can kind of see it here, is that it's 128 samples in each slot of drum rack. So there's 128 samples in each of these little slots, and then they're mapped to toggle through those samples using this macro. And that's really useful, so you start building your groove and whatnot, and you kind of get tired of a clap or a kick drum or whatever, and you just start toggling through, I'm going to start changing that clap, and you can go and make further edits because you have it loaded up in Sampler. Like if you need a filter because it has too much high end on a kick, you just bring that filter down, and Sampler's filter is really strong, just as good as auto filter, except you don't have a lot of options on exactly what kind of filter it could be. So, but I mean, for working with drums, it does a pretty good job. And if you need to process it further, you can set up EQ8s like I do, and then I just put a spectrum so I can kind of look at my drums as a whole, or kind of see what's going on with everything. So let's just grab a drum rack. Just delete some of this stuff. Close all this up. That's typically how drum rack looks when you load it up. And then a sampler. So I'm going to touch really quick on 128s. 128 comes from the fact that there's 128 slots. It says 127, but 0 can hold information in a computer, unlike math where it cannot hold any information, but computers allow information to be held in 0. So what you do is you basically organize all your samples into 128. So I categorize my kicks and then my snares and my claps, and just put those all into categories, toggled through all my samples, picked 128 of my favorites, and then once I narrowed them down and added to them whatever needed to be done to make it exactly 128, I just grabbed them all, highlighted them. It's not letting me do anything. There we go. Alright, so this is 38. Not exactly going to be a great number. Pretty close to 32, so you kind of see. It gets a little bit longer. You can't see it as well because it's not a super odd number. Well, it is for 128, but it's pretty close to 32. So it kind of works out. But you're going to have more, samples are going to be longer over here, so you're gonna have to toggle through more slots before you get to the next sample than you would here. And then once you're done with that, just distributing your ranges, you want to group this up into an instrument rack. Go back to that selector tab, distribute ranges equally. And Mac to macro 1. We already distributed the ranges, so that's gonna slide your macro. and just kind of give you that. So if you have 128, you can just toggle through using your arrow keys, auditioning each kick or each snare really quickly, so that it gives you just a little bit more flexibility. Then once you're done with all that, definitely rename everything. Like, these are my kicks, this is my kick selector, etc. And then save it up. And then when you save it, it's going to take you to your user library, into your presets, into your instrument rack. And I kind of, it'll be under here, but I grouped them up into this folder. So now that we're done kind of reviewing 128s or exposing you to them, if you need to know more about that, there's a bunch of tutorials more focused on drum rack and how that routing is going to be set up for this final product over here. So you're going to take 2 kicks. I like working with 2s of things. These are the same samples, but you just pick 2 different ones, blend those together, or the same sampler, and you just blend those together, and you just kind of EQ them differently, and you create like a whole nother kick. That's a really common thing, and for good reason. Claps. Close. All right. So these are my groups. Of the sampler 128s. If you only want to use 8, if you're not looking to have that much stuff going on, like you really only have like 128 kicks, and you think you can work with that and get by with that, which is fine. I recommend against it, but if that's what suits your fancy, you would just map this way. So you would just map this to that macro one, which we'll do. I'm gonna unmap that real quick, and then build the bus channels from here. And also, well, there's one more group of bus channels we got to set up. So you're just going to group these up. Click, Command click, if I could not hold Option for Mac. And I'm going to do all my symbols together. Awesome. So if you only want to use 8, I'll go a little bit, I'll just explain it real quick. You would just set up your bus channels here and here, as opposed to what I'll do in the rest of the video. I'm just going to close that up. So basically what we're going to do now is just kind of rename these. Cool. And then change the color of them. And you see, I'll show you in a second, since we changed all the colors here, they will change in that group. And vice versa, if you change it here, it'll change it there. I spelled symbol wrong. Alright. So now we're going to set up the bus tracks. You just right click to show all this stuff. You just this is everything folded down. You'll show this and make sure your sends and returns are showing, and you just go ahead. They'll show it. And so you want to set those up, and we have 3 tracks going on right now. So you'll end up with a return for your kick, a return for your snare, and return for your cymbal, which is really kind of cool. Gives you some parallel processing options. I'm just going to turn these off, and that's how I have it set up over here. Just all those turned off, so I don't have clipping, right when I'm trying to audition, just try to audition kick drums and having clipping. Just want that kick drum. And then if I go into this kick now, I can still go on and create even more bus chains. Do it for the snares, and do it for the cymbals. Definitely you want to rename everything. Just make everything nice and neat so you understand what's going on. Don't be sloppy with it. It's your default set. You want it to be really clear, and I'd even go in and just like change these, make these a little bit smaller, because these are just going to be more for audio effects, not for anything really other than that. Just get everything lined up just how you would like it. And so that what we just did there was when we went into these and created all these buses. When you open that up, now you have an A and a B bus and 2 more buses, or return tracks, however you want to call them. 2 more buses of returns. And I only use 2 for cymbals, because closed and shakers are going to have similar frequency structures, and open hi-hats and rides are going to have similar frequency structures. Just so I could put those all together, then I'd send it in to this return as a whole to do some further stuff maybe. So now that that's all done, let's just take a look at what this can really offer you. I'm gonna load up some kicks and kind of show you just kind of what it ends up doing. And I'll use a clap, and then a shaker. There's also tambourines in here, that's why that's a tambourine. And then open hi-hats. Let's do actually close hi-hats. I'll put it open there. Then I'll throw a tom in somewhere. Right there. That clap is terrible, right? So let's go through and just change it up. Nice little drum machine. I like this one, but I want the pitch of it to be a bit higher, so I'm just going to transpose it up. Actually kind of sits really well in with that tom. Like the sampler just has spread, so you can really bring out some stereo stuff if you want. It's got this oscillator control. You could add some FM or AM and change how you want it to affect. Typically with percussion it's going to be short anyways, but you can have the peak a little bit different. That's going to be your biggest asset, unless it's like a really long kick drum or a really long cymbal or something like that. This pinch envelope that I like to have a lot of fun with, that kind of opened it up a little bit, made it a little bit longer because it's stretching down now. And then to edit these, you just show automation, which is what really makes this useful, because when you're in session mode or even in arrangement mode, you just hold this and tab it and drag it over, create your little loop. But you can go and edit like all this automation right here in this view. You can really get creative with it. I'm not going to try to show off or anything. I'm sure you guys want to get to making music, but that's kind of the concept of it. I hope this has been really helpful. And once you're done with everything, once you get your routing set up, you get all your 128s in there. If you want to put, like, if you do all this stuff too, give you like a glance at that. If you want to put VSTs over here and stuff, that's fine. But just loading up all these 128s as a default is going to take it some time. So also loading up VSTs is going to take even longer, so it's going to be like a 10-minute startup time for Ableton. And I don't want you to forget any of your ideas that you opened up Ableton for, just because you have a lot of stuff that's got to be loaded for your default. And how you save that default is just Command and you go to file folder, right there, and you just hit save. And however you leave it, like, so when I saved mine, I just had my master open because that's how I wanted it, and I hit save. So that when it opens up, it immediately shows my master with my my limiter. No, I'm not ashamed to produce with a limiter, but I do not mix with a limiter, and that's for some mono summing and some cool spectrum display. So yeah, that's the gist. I hope this has been helpful. If you like what you've learned, please give me a thumbs up or a comment. If you have any questions, shoot me a comment. I'll definitely get back to you. And I hope you all are having a great day, and happy music making, guys. Take care.